Hey guys, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you are tuning in. All right, so can you guys believe? But this is our last lesson. Okay, this is our last lesson before we finish period one, which is pretty crazy because there's only 4 periods in AP World History. So if we're done with period one, that means we're a quarter done with the class, which is just crazy to think about. All right. But I wanted to say that this is awesome news and I feel really confident in all of you. All right. On Friday or on Thursday, you're going to be taking your multiple choice test for period one. So good luck. And you only have one more lesson to get through. And then I will confidently say you are ready to ace this test. Okay. All right, guys, so we're finishing up with period one. So remember the years 1200 to 1450. Today we're actually going to go, I know the last couple days we've been talking uniquely about unit two, but today we're actually going to go back to unit one and we're going to talk about Europe and briefly about the Americas. Okay, so we're still doing unit one and unit two. The reason we did this, as we discussed, it's much easier to kind of lump it's much easier to lump Asia, Africa, the Middle East together because this region of the world is going to be engaging in trade. Okay, they're going to be engaging in the Silk Road, the Indian Ocean trading route, the Trans-Saharan trading route. Okay, Europe, not so much. Okay, I know a lot of you came into this class thinking that Europe is a very important region, and it is. But during period one, Europe's really not doing too much. Not a lot of things going on in Europe. So we need to set the stage for European dominance. Okay, all of us, myself included, thought or think that Europe is a very, very important player, and it is, but not in this period, not in this time period. Okay, we need to understand what's going on in Europe between 1200 and 1450 that really isolated it. Okay, and that's what we're going to do today. All right, so I've got a warm up for you guys. I won't put that here in the video because we'll do something different for each class. And we'll move on to finishing up periods one, okay? Finishing up Europe and the Americas and setting the stage for period two. And finally, at the end of class, please finish your review guides. Those will be due in the beginning of your next class. So I will need those in my email box before you can begin the multiple choice test. All right, I'll give you time at the start of class. Please have those ready. All right, all right, guys, so here are two graphics. We have seen these multiple times in this class. This was kind of how I laid out our class for us. Now, again, as I've said, we pretty much did Asia and Africa and the Middle East before we made our way to Europe. And the really important reason for that is because of trade, because Asia, the Middle East, and Africa are much more interconnected. A lot of trade is occurring, a lot of ideas and religions and important innovations are spreading. And the reason we went and did most of Unit 1, jumped to the trading routes of Unit 2, and now we're going back to Europe is because Europe pretty much remains isolated, okay? We spent a lot of time talking about China. We spent a lot of time talking about India, Africa. And today we're only talking briefly about Europe because, again, Europe's not really that important yet. And we're going to see why now. But before I forget, during our lesson on South Asia 2 weeks ago, I totally forgot to go into what Sufism is. So as you guys probably have seen with your review guides, Sufism is very important. And what you need to know about it is that it is a critical religion, and Sufis are actually going to be active in spreading Islam. However, Sufism is kind of different than regular Islam, okay? It's a mystical version of Islam, and it kind of believes that to draw closer to Allah, you can do so through prayer, fasting, and a much simpler life. So Sufis are going to be active in spreading Islam. They're going to be spreading the Sufi version of Islam, okay? And you can make the case that Sufism is a syncretic religion. It's not like the Islam that you see in the Middle East. It actually has kind of embraced more local traditions in South Asia. And Sufism is going to be active in spreading Islam in this region of the world, in South Asia, okay? So I forgot to mention this last week. So I wanted to go ahead and make sure you have this in your notes, because this will be part of what's on your test on Thursday and Friday, okay? Okay, guys, so you don't have to write this, and I've already briefly mentioned it, but let me go over this again. All right, in period 1, so between 1200 and 1450, Europe is pretty much the least important region that we talk about. And I know that's crazy, because after period 1, Europe's going to be a major power player, okay? Europe's going to be very important. It's going to be, Columbus is going to come out of Europe, all right? Trading is going to be a major factor in why Europe wants to have more of a stake in the world, okay? But in period 1, Europe isn't trading, okay? When we talked about the Silk Roads, when we talked about the Trans-Saharan or the Indian Ocean trading route, we really didn't talk about Europe. Okay, we might have mentioned Marco Polo, but he was an exception to the rule. Okay, Europe is isolated. Europeans are not really trading. They're not exposed to or receiving ideas from more advanced groups of people. Okay, so Europeans in France, for example, are not actively exposed to people from China or people from South Asia. Okay, so they're not engaging in this intercultural exchange of ideas and religions. So this is important. Okay, so a lot of us are going to think about this European dominance. We're going to think about all the colonies that Europe is eventually going to have, and all of Europe's superiority in transportation and trading, and that's coming. It is, but don't get confused. Again, in period 1, Europe is nothing, all right? It is not even a major player at all. So we need to talk about what Europe is up to during this time, okay? So I wanted you guys to get a sense of what the geography of Europe's looking like, all right? So it's a little bit different than how it looks today. You're gonna see a lot more smaller and fragmented kingdoms. Okay, so today Europe's also a small region of the world with lots of different political states, but in period 1 there's even more political states. Look at these little tiny kingdoms, these little tiny like dukedoms. All right, so guys, when we're talking about the geography of Europe, we're talking about small tiny political states. We're not talking about these powerful united empires. We're not talking about the Song dynasty or the Delhi Sultanate or the Abbasid Caliphate. No, we're talking about small, fragmented groups of people, okay? Make sure you understand this buzzword right here. Europe is decentralized, okay? Power is going to be locally held. It's not going to be held by one important emperor who owns this large swath of land. Instead, again, it's going to be little tiny competing states. And these little tiny competing states are going to be actively fighting each other. Okay, they're constantly going to be bickering, trying to take land from each other, trying to take serfs. We'll talk about that in a minute. Trying to take the food surplus. All right, there's not one major emperor. There's just a bunch of small little states that don't get along. Okay. So actually, I think this is a much better map that gives you a sense of what this fragmented regions are looking like. Okay, so this is actually a German map, which is why you see the German words here, but lots of different little kingdoms that are competing with each other. Okay, so in terms of the political situation, again, you're going to see a lot of decentralization. So again, not a big empire with one major emperor and lots of bureaucracy helping him run his empire. Instead, small regional kingdoms, okay? And there's really no centralized power. So all of these little tiny political states tend to have one king, and none of those kings don't answer to one major king. Okay, so again, this is very decentralized. All right, most kingdoms are monarchies, so we're going to have a head of state, we're going to have a king. Okay, but again, lots of them much smaller scale than the emperors you see in Asia or the Middle East. So, in terms of the political situation, Europe's going to have a very unique system. All right, it's going to be called the manorial or the feudal system. So, perhaps in middle school, you've heard of feudalism. Okay, we're going to talk about feudalism quite a bit in AP World History. So, today is the day to learn about it. So you're going to have a lot of conflict. All right. As I said, all of these little states are going to be competing with each other. They're going to be fighting. You're going to have lots of knights and who are going to be leading people into battle against each other in order to serve their king. Okay. Important to know this stuff, guys. All right, guys. So economic system. All right. So I know this is kind of a weird picture, but this is kind of a way to symbolize the feudal system. All right, so what you're going to see is that Europe is not going to be engaged in interregional trade. So unlike people of the Song Dynasty in China or in South Asia, you're not going to see like a land-based trade. You're not going to see people actively working as merchants, okay? You're not going to see an interregional trade, right? Even the smaller states in Europe are not really going to be trading with each other. This is because most of these manors are going to be subsistence farming. So what subsistence farming is when people really only grow enough food for themselves. So serfs on these manors are really going to only grow just enough food for their family as well as for the owner of the manor. Okay, they're not going to grow a surplus of food. And so, as we talked about, guys, when you don't have a surplus of food, you can't have a huge population, and you don't have enough things to sell and to trade. Okay, so all of this is going to go hand in hand with why Europe does not have lots of trade. Okay, you're not going to have a lot of urban areas. All right, as we talked about, urban areas are going to spring up along trading routes. So you're going to need cities for people to stay, for people to trade, but that's not going to be the case in Europe. All right, instead, again, Europe is going to have these small manors with people, these serfs who are working on these manors. Okay, there's going to be no need for major cities. There's really not, there's no need for urban cosmopolitan areas where people actively trade. Okay, food is going to be grown to these people called the serfs. Okay, now it would be unfair to call the serfs enslaved peoples, okay, or slaves, because technically the serfs did have some level of freedom that enslaved peoples maybe didn't have. However, serfs were tied to the land. Where you were born, you had to stay. You were required to be a worker to the owner of a manor if you were the serf on this farming area. Okay, so people are going to work and live on this manor system. All right, let me show you a little bit more about what this system is. So guys, when we're talking about the manors, this is in many ways, it's an economic system, but it's also a social system. So what will happen is you have one lord, okay? He's gonna live in that big fancy house, right? And the people that work for him, or the serfs, will live in small cottages. Now, what will happen is that these people will all work together and they will farm the manors, the lord's fields. And so they will create food for themselves and for the Lord. Okay. Now, the only reason that someone agrees to be part of this manor system is for protection. So the Lord is going to have to find a way to protect these serfs, okay? And that's where the knights are going to come in. So what you're going to have, guys, is you're going to have a Lord who's also going to employ knights to protect the serfs. And the serfs are going to plant and feed the knights and the Lord. Okay? So I will talk a little bit more about this system in just a minute. But going in our G Persia sort of chart, we're moving on to religion. So I'm not going to get too in depth with religion here, but you do need to know that we're talking about a series of 3 different monotheistic religions. Okay, so Europe, especially feudalistic Europe, is mostly going to be Christian. Okay, and by Christian, we mean that most of them are going to be practicing Roman Catholics, right? Roman Catholics is a version of Christianity, and the head of their church is the Pope. I'm not going to get too much into it because I don't think I need to. But you do need to understand that these are the 3 religions we're talking about when we're talking about Europe. Okay, most people assume that all of Europe is going to be Christian, but in period 1, that's just not true. Okay, so as we talked about, the Islamic states are going to move throughout the Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia. What's going to happen as well is that Islam is actually going to spread up into Spain. So it's going to cross the Mediterranean Sea, and you're going to see a lot of Muslims in Spain. Okay, and so by the end of period 1, even though Spain for a long time was a majority Muslim, the Muslim grip is starting to slip a little bit. So Christians are going to slowly begin to push the Muslims out of Spain. But Muslims are going to have a very strong influence in Spain. So if you go to Spain today and you visit some of the very famous cathedrals, the Christian cathedrals, you're actually going to see a lot of Islamic influence. So many of these Christian cathedrals today were historically Muslim mosques. So this is an example, guys. So as we talked about, Muslim architecture has a very distinct style. You can see these arches. So this is actually a cathedral today in Cordoba, Spain. But as you can see from this architectural style with the bright colors and the arches, this was originally a mosque. Okay, so Islam is going to have a very powerful role, especially in Spain. Okay, and you're also going to see in some of the few urban areas of Europe, you're going to see a Jewish diaspora. So you will see people that practice Judaism will actually be coming into Europe and settling in some of the major cities. Okay. Okay, guys. So as for a social institution, there's really not going to be a lot of social mobility. All right. It's going to be very similar to the caste system in South Asia. So what's going to happen is, again, wherever you were born into, so if your parents were lords, chances are good that you too are going to be a lord. And if your parents were peasants, you too will stay a peasant. So this system is really unique because it's a system of kind of give and take. So again, peasants are going to be at the bottom, and basically they're going to be farming the land and paying rent. And the lord, in order, for them to farm the land, the lord is going to allegedly give them protection. Okay, so the lord is going to hire these guys, these vassals, these knights to protect the land, to protect the serfs. Okay. Now, again, guys, you're going to have kings at the top, but it's very decentralized. So lords pretty much have most of the power. They still do have to pay some taxes to the king and also provide military aid by sending their knights. But again, these guys are pretty much going to be the most powerful because of this system of decentralization. Okay. So again, the serfs are going to be at the bottom. There's really no social mobility. And while we cannot call the serfs slaves, they pretty much were tied to the land. They really were not allowed to leave the land. There's no going to college and getting a degree and changing the social mobility structure that we can do here in America in 2020. So you're pretty much tied to where you were born in this feudal system, okay? And this is going to keep Europe very far behind, okay? So after S, we've got innovations. So this is a long, exhaustive list of all of the innovations that Europeans are going to come up with. So as you can see, you need to have all of these memorized. Oh, just kidding. Yeah, Europe's very far behind, guys. We're sitting here listing off innovations of East Asia. We're talking about the astrolabe, the compass, paper, gunpowder, all these phenomenal things. And Europe's not really contributing anything, okay? But this is all going to change, okay? And this is all going to change probably a little bit for the better for Europe. Europe's going to eventually figure out that they want to get into the game too. So, guys, by the end of period 1, Europe is going to start engaging in something called the Crusades. So the Crusades are pretty much the first time that Europe is finally going to have interaction with these more advanced civilizations. So Europe's finally going to leave their little feudalistic farms and travel to the Middle East to fight off Muslim infidels in the Holy Land. But you'll finally have Europeans leaving Europe and finally encountering people of different and advanced civilizations. So what are the Crusades? They're a series of wars led by the Catholic Pope. Now remember, most of Europe is Roman Catholic, and so if the leader of your church says that you have to go to the Middle East to fight off the Muslims from the Holy Land, you're going to do it, okay? And you're a serf or you're a knight, and your lord is going to tell you you have to go because the leader of our church is telling you have to go. So you're going to have a mass amount of people leaving Europe to go to the Middle East to fight. Okay, they're going to be trying to reclaim this Holy Land and Jerusalem from Muslim control. So again, the Islamic states are going to have control of this region. So is it successful or is it not? Well, that's the good question. All right, so the First Crusade, and there's going to be a ton of them, including one completely led by children, because everyone knows how great children are in fighting wars. The First Crusade is going to be a success. The rest are going to be terrible, terrible failures. And they're going to be varying degrees of fail. So again, the first one is successful in that they do actually expel Muslims from Jerusalem, but it doesn't last very long, and Muslims return to Jerusalem, and then the Pope's going to try to send another crusade. It's going to happen again, and it's just going to be a disaster. So again, what you need to know, you don't need to know all the gory details, and there are a lot of them, lots of murder, rape, and pillage, lots of children being killed, and the Crusades are pretty awful. But what you do need to know is that this is really important because for the first time, Europe is going to figure out that they're far behind. And there's a lot of cool stuff coming out of Asia and Africa and the Middle East. And Europe wants a piece of that pie, okay? So what's going to happen is that Europeans are actually going to develop a taste for luxury goods, especially pepper. Europeans love pepper. And pepper is going to come out of Southeast Asia, okay? In addition to this new taste for the luxury goods, Europeans are also going to be exposed to Arabic numerals, which we said originally come from South Asia. They're also going to be exposed to the compass, the astrolabe, and again, lots of amazing, delicious spices that they realize they want, okay? And so all of this is going to come out of this bloody, gory, awful war that Christians waged against Muslims in the Middle East called the Crusades. Okay? So why are we bringing this up? Well, when you guys come back next week, we're going to start period 2. And period 2 is pretty much going to revolve around what this guy did. Okay, this guy right here is Christopher Columbus. Love him or hate him, you're probably right. Either way, but what you need to know is that Europe is going to develop this strong appetite for luxury goods. Okay, they're going to want pepper, they're going to want turmeric, they're going to want cinnamon, they're going to want to find ways to expedite the Silk Road. All right, they're all going to want that porcelain and silk and all that cool stuff coming out of Asia. Okay, but those trading routes take a long time and it's expensive. So they're going to start wanting to figure out ways to get that luxury good, those luxury goods, without having to cross this huge landmass of Asia. Okay. And that's when we're going to get this guy right here, Christopher Columbus, who's going to be given the task of finding an ocean-based trading route from Europe to Asia. Okay. And that's going to set us up for a whole lot of other crazy stuff in period 2. So guys, there is one topic that we did not really talk about, topic 1.4, and that's state building in the Americas. And we really don't need to talk about it because we're going to talk significantly about it when we get into period 2. But what you do need to know is that the Americas, just like what's happening in Africa, you're going to see state systems that are going to be diverse, innovative, and important. So some of you guys did your digital notebook G-Persia chart on ancient civilizations. Some of you did the Mayans or the Incans or the Aztecs, right? So you're going to have a lot of human civilizations existing in this area of the world, okay? What's important about that is that they're going to be completely isolated. Okay, they trade amongst each other, but they're going to be isolated from Europe and Asia and Africa. Okay, and that is all going to change in period 2. So we are standing at the end of period 1. So we are standing at the edge of 1450, and we have talked about the Song dynasty, we've talked about East Asia, okay? We've talked about the Delhi Sultanate in South Asia, okay? The Srivijaya Empire in Southeast Asia, okay? We've talked about the Islamic states, okay? In particular, the Abbasid Caliphate. And now we have talked about Europe and very briefly South America. All right, so this is what the world is gonna look like at the end of period 1. So make sure you know this. Make sure you understand what our world is going to look like as you head in to taking your test. Okay, guys. So again, our next class, you are going to have your exam, your period 1 exam. Okay. I gave you this review guide like 3 weeks ago. You should be almost done with it if you're not already done. If not, you need to be working on this. This needs to be a priority. Okay. At the start of class on exam day, you will email this to me. Okay. I will give you time in class before opening up the exam. But if you printed it out and you're taking a picture of it, please have that picture taken before. Okay. Again, you're going to email this to me and I will give you a grade for this. So make sure you have it done. Also, make sure you have it done because this is what your exam is going to be on. So do yourself a favor and do it. All right, guys. And so I know some of you will have some questions about the exam. So I wanted to tell you about some resources that I recommend. Obviously, the review guide will probably be your best friend, but also I suggest that you can watch some of the videos that I've made for you. You can also use your digital notebook. Some of those writing samples that I had you guys do are going to help. I also recommend using Steve Heimler's videos. If you go to YouTube and look up this goober right here, so his name is Steve Heimler. He's an AP World teacher, and he does like 5-minute videos for each topic. That might be helpful for you as well. Also, there's the review guides on Canvas. And of course, for the visual learners, I've given you this AP World History textbook. So that should be on Canvas for you, okay? Remember, guys, you don't have to know all of the gory little details, but you need to know the big ideas, and you need to be able to apply the big ideas. And that is what this class is all about, okay? So I'm going to stop our video there. Make sure to email me if you have any questions, and if not, good luck on your test.